What if I told you that I have an invisible pink dragon in my garage? Would you believe me? What if I said that my name is Chet? Would you believe that? How do we know and determine what is true or false about reality? This is essentially an epistemological question, or how we know what we know. And I think that science, or methodological naturalism, is the best method for determining what is true or not true about the world. And as a person studying to be a scientist, these questions are extremely fascinating to me. So in this speech, I will argue that there are three main reasons why science is the best method for determining what is true or not. One, science is useful. The second reason is science is convergent. And the third reason is there are no other competing methods. So, first of all, science is useful. As stated by Aaron Kantrovich in Scientific Discovery, discovery is a success word. When we say we have discovered something, it means, for example, that the product of discovery is useful, that it solves a problem, explains some phenomena, or that is the lost object we have been looking for. So you can see this. Obviously, our world is nothing but scientific discoveries: computers, planes, trains, cars, cell phones, everything around us. And this is kind of sort of shows you that science epistemologically is a good method for determining truth. Because when there's a scientific discovery, it proves that we understand something about the way the world works. In medical technology, science has taken us from basically thinking that sickness was caused by demons and spirits and praying over it, to actually being able to transplant organs and creating antibiotics and laser surgery and all that sort of thing. As stated by Rupert Lee in The Eureka Moment, one only has to contrast a visit to the doctor or hospital in the 1990s with a similar visit in the 1890s to appreciate the achievements of science in the century. So, of course, science gives us a lot of discoveries, and it gives us technologies and all this stuff, but it doesn't just help us learn things, it actually deepens the mysteries of the world. A good example would be dark energy and dark matter. We figured out, because of the scientific method, that most of the universe is actually made of stuff that we don't know what it is, 70%. And so we don't just learn things from the scientific method, we actually create deeper mysteries about the world. So, despite the success of science, many untrue things were once believed. So how can we trust what the current science says? So the second point would be that science is convergent. It isn't just always changing. And a good example of this would be the shape of the Earth. At one point it was believed that the Earth was flat, but this wasn't exactly scientifically untrue, because when you observe the Earth, it looks almost flat, and the curvature of a flat surface is zero, and the curvature of the Earth is almost zero. So when you take long distances, you can see that the Earth is spherical, but it wasn't that we were wrong initially. We just got better and better over time. Eventually, we learned that the Earth has a bulge from the gravitational pull of the Moon, and we actually, well, at one point we believed that the Earth was basically perfectly spherical, but then we figured out it bulged. And then, with better techniques, we figured out that it bulged a little bit more on one part of the Earth. So it's actually pear-shaped. It's not flat, it's not spherical, it's pear-shaped. And that's how science works. And we're not going to go back one day and figure out that it's flat. So it converges on a better and better answer. Another example is how we went from when philosophers were trying to discover what the basic constituents of things were. We went to alchemy, thinking that things could be transmuted into gold. We could take anything and make it gold. Then we figured out chemistry from that, and it got better. It's like, one day we're not going to figure out that we can transmute things into gold. So, I suppose thirdly, the last point why science is the best method for determining what is most probabilistically true about the world is, what other method do we have? There's pretty much nothing else we can do to try to discover true things about the world. As stated by Gregory Neal Derry in What Science Is and How It Works, how does a scientist go about making a discovery? The idea that there's a single answer, the scientific method, persists in some quarters, but many thoughtful people, scientists and science critics alike, would now agree that science is too wide-ranging, multifaceted, and far too interesting for any single answer to suffice. Well, a good example of why we don't really have any method that's more reliable than the wide-ranging scientific method that Neil's talking about here is if you just think about a simple thought experiment trying to figure something out, like how to get across town or how to find an address somewhere. If you could accidentally get right. If you wanted to get to New York, you could just use your feelings and get in a car and drive, and maybe you'll end up in New York. But 9 times out of 10, you're not going to end up in New York. But if you use MapQuest, most of the time you're probably going to get there. And that's the difference between the spirit of science and the spirit of just guessing at things. As stated by Bertrand Russell in Religion and Science, science is the attempt to discover, by means of observation and reasoning based upon it, particular facts about the world, and then laws connecting facts with one another, and in fortunate cases, making it possible to predict future occurrences. So, in conclusion, I told you about how science is useful, it's convergent, and that it gets better over time, and that there's no competing method. So, when asking yourself any sort of question, whether it's simple like, is his name Ched, or does he have a pink dragon in his garage, the best way to figure out the answer to these questions, and especially the harder ones about the pink dragon in my garage, is science, and not using your feelings. Thank you.